Bonjour, my name is Christy Holland. I'm currently a junior. I'm majoring in journalism and English. And this past summer I went to Paris, France for the Paris Summer Language Institute. I decided to go to France because I had been studying French, and I studied French because I had taken it in high school, and I figured it would be much easier to continue with the language that I already had a foundation in, than starting something new and then switching it up a lot. And I went to during the summer because it fit in my schedule the best. I probably could have graduated in 4 years if I had gone for the whole semester, but I'm also very much a homebody, and I don't like to be away from home for very long. So 5 weeks was just enough time for me to be there and enjoy it, and I wasn't too incredibly homesick for most of it. I had taken 3 years of French in high school, but my French teacher was great, but we didn't speak a whole lot. It was mostly grammar and vocabulary that I knew. So when I came to KU, I tested out of the first class of 110 French, and I had taken up to 230 by the time I left. And it was really helpful, I think, because the entire time you're there, at least when the professor's around, we're all supposed to be speaking completely in French, which is very interesting when all of our vocabularies are very small and we don't always know which verb tenses we're supposed to use and things like that. But eventually it got much better, and there was always some people that would always try to speak English just when the professors weren't around, but myself and a few of my friends always tried to speak French as much as possible, just because we were only there for such a short period of time. It's funny, even now when we run into each other, we still speak French because we miss it so much, which is always a lot of fun, and everyone around us kind of laughs at us. It's just one of those things that I never quite get over. So for the first 10 days or so, we traveled all around the northwestern part of France. We hit 3 or 4 different cities, and there was a lot of bus time, which was a lot of fun. We mostly slept through it, but we had early mornings and late nights, but it was totally worth it. It was always a lot of fun. When we finally ended up in Paris, we were in Paris for about 4 weeks, and we all stayed with host families, which was a really great experience. My host family refused to speak English to me because I'm not entirely sure if she even knew English. She knew a few words whenever I would get confused, but it was definitely an experience getting used to it, and really helped me learn to speak French better and be more comfortable with it. We had class Monday through Friday. There were 2 different class sessions, about 4 hours each. My class was in the mornings, so we went from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And at the first it seemed like a lot of class period because it's 4 hours of the same subject, but we did get a little break about halfway through, and on Fridays were really fun because they always brought food in, and we did like a geography lesson and learned about whatever that section of France, and then they brought in food and drink from that part of France, and it was a lot of fun. The afternoon class started at 1:30, I believe, and then went to 5:30. We also had tours twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. One would be a walking tour where our professors would take us around to different parts of Paris and talk to us about the history of what had happened there, and go to a few really big things. And that was a lot of fun. The first tour that we did, we went around Saint-Michel, which is a really big touristy part, but it was really good because that was during the night when we all hang out. We'd always meet there because we all knew exactly where we were going, and it's right across the river from Notre Dame, and so we would like meet outside Notre Dame most nights, and that was a lot of fun. We would also do museum tours, which were really interesting. Whichever professor you went with, they chose their own museums to go to. So like we went to a museum of the Middle Ages, which was really interesting because it's not a museum I would have picked to go to on my own. So it was a lot of fun. When we were in school, We were in an actual school. It was called L'Etoile, and it was an international school. So we had students from all over the world in our class. The class I was in was mostly people from our group because we were all divided into whichever levels of French speaking and writing they thought we were at. We also had students from Korea, and for a while we had a student from, she was American, but she was currently living in London and had flown to Paris, or gone to Paris with her mother, and decided that she wanted to take some French classes while she was there, so it was a lot of fun. I had applied to the French and Italian department because I got a several $100 scholarship for the program, which was really, every little bit helps. So. Myself and 3 of my friends spent a weekend in London, which was one of my highlights of the trip. I went to see a production of Much Ado About Nothing with David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and they're some of Britain's finest actors, and it was the best experience I have ever had. I even got to meet them after the show, and I got their autographs, and I had to videotape the experience, and every time I rewatch the video I still am like shaking with excitement. It was so awesome. But it was also very nice to go to an English-speaking country just for a few days where we knew that there wasn't going to be a complete language barrier. It was just nice to have a little break halfway through the program. I would tell them to do as much as possible before you go, because there's really there's nothing to be nervous about at all. The professors all know that everyone is at different levels. There was one guy who was on our trip who could speak to anyone, and he was totally comfortable, and he spoke so fast that sometimes I couldn't even understand him. And then we had me and a few of my friends that were struggling to put a few sentences together, but it's really nothing to be nervous about. The best thing about the programs is that they force you to speak French, and sometimes in the classroom settings you don't always get that experience, especially because everyone's always nervous, just that they're going to make a mistake. And that idea that you're going to make a mistake is the biggest obstacle, I think, to overcome. On the program, because we're all forced to speak, and we were graded on our participation of speaking French, especially we had to speak to the professors in French, and that was part of our grade for the week, which was really helpful because they're very understanding. They would help us along. We could always ask for, how do you say this, or what's the word for this, and things like that. But I think studying abroad, because I was completely surrounded by French all the time, it was really easy to speak French. And the people of France, I know French people get a bad rap sometimes. Everyone's like, oh, they're so rude, and et cetera, but as long as you try to speak French, they were always more than welcome to help. They would slow down, they would repeat things. As long as we were trying, they were very, very gracious and helpful. So. I really enjoyed visiting the cafes in Paris a lot. The atmosphere is fantastic. It's great because the waiters are so much different. You can just go and you sit down and you order a cup of coffee or bread or whatever you want to order, and then the waiters bring you your order, and then you can sit there forever, literally. We like to sit and watch people walk by because people watching was a lot of fun. I also really enjoyed the tour that's in the first part of the trip, mostly because we went to Normandy and we went to a lot of World War II museums, and we actually got to go to the beaches, and it was really a moving experience, and it helped connect that part of history to my life, because before that I didn't really, it was just one of those things that happened and I didn't have any real connection to it. I also really loved going to the museums. The Musée d'Orsay was probably my favorite because it has a lot of Impressionist paintings, and Monet's my favorite, and they have an entire room dedicated just to his stuff, and I walked in and I wanted to cry because it was just all so beautiful. I would tell them to talk to their professors, talk to Office of Study Abroad. There are a lot of scholarships available, and a lot of them not very many people know about. And some of them I know people are just too lazy to apply for. But as long as you are looking for them and talking to people about them, they're pretty easy to find, and especially a lot of the ones that people don't know about, not very many people apply to, so you have a better chance of getting them. I think there's a lot of benefits to studying abroad. The biggest thing that I've noticed is that when I'm in my French classes now, I can understand the teacher no problem when she's speaking French. I know a lot of the other students have a little trouble and they ask to repeat things. I'm also so much more comfortable speaking French than anyone else is, which is really great. We all developed kind of relationships with our professors just because we were with them all the time, and anytime we had problems, those were the ones to go to. And you can't really come out of an experience like that without getting to know a lot of people really well. I've had those professors offer to write recommendations for me. I know they'll be really great if I ever need to get in touch with someone later for networking and things like that. I also think that studying abroad sets people apart when they're applying for jobs, because it says a lot that you can go to a foreign country and stay there for however long and be in a completely new culture, and that you learn things about yourself that you can't really learn anywhere else. And I learned a lot about America just by being there, just from how people act differently and what's culturally acceptable and things like that are also, they were really interesting. I got to talk to a lot of people about those. I would definitely say that if you can study abroad, do it, because it was definitely one of those things about college that I remember forever when I'm looking back. There are some classes that I will probably remember, and of course there's like things I do with my friends that they're fun, but nothing will really compare than looking to be like, oh, I lived in France for 5 weeks. And really studying abroad is one of the few opportunities that you get to do that in your lifetime. Because most of the time, even if you go on vacation, it's only for a week or two, and it's not quite the same as living there and walking down the same streets and talking to the same people and things like that. So definitely do everything you can, apply for lots of scholarships, and go in with an open mind, because you never know what you'll do that you didn't expect to do.